Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Rob, and welcome back to episode number 31 of the Washington football team franchise here on Madden NFL 22. Today, we'll be recapping a shortened version of the full free agency period that was live streamed on the channel on Saturday. If you want to watch the full live stream, I'll have it linked in the description below as well as at the end of the video. So if you're excited for this one, make sure you drop a like and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Now, our last season as Washington, we went 10-7, a pretty solid record. Had our struggles early on, but we ended up winning 5 of our last 6 and making the playoffs as the NFC East winners for the second straight season. Now, in the NFC, once we made the playoffs, we got to the second round before getting smoked by the Seattle Seahawks, who ended up losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But that was last season. We are now the Toronto Thunderbirds, and with the new season comes some changes. Now, one change I didn't mention in the last coaching carousel is Pete Carroll actually retired after the Super Bowl. They bring in Pete Carmichael, the Saints offensive coordinator, to be their new head coach. You had to think Russell Wilson may have played a part in that hire, considering he thought about going to the Saints. We brought in a new coach ourselves. Us and Ron Rivera mutually agreed to part ways, and we brought in Sean McVay, the former Los Angeles Rams head coach, to be the new coach in Toronto. Now, new season means more retirements, some changes, and there are a lot of them. You're not going to see all of them on the screen, but the big ones: Jimmy Graham retires, Antonio Brown retires, so he calls it quits. Jimmy Smith as well. Andrew Whitworth retires. Gerald McCoy, Adrian Peterson, no doubt a future Hall of Famer. Deshaun Jackson retired. Frank Gore as well, another future Hall of Famer in my books. Ryan Kerrigan, the former Washington member. And, of course, Tim Tebow retires for the second time. Now, one player you didn't see retire is Ryan Fitzpatrick. He is going to come back for another season. He did have quite a bit of regression, and I think he might be back in Toronto. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Ben Roethlisberger also didn't retire. He wants to come back for an age 40 season. However, he's not the same Big Ben. It'll be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does this offseason. Another player who got hit with big regression from our side is John Bostic. He is now to a 66 overall. Lost 10 in the tackling department. I don't think he'll be a starting caliber linebacker next year. William Jackson also had some regression, -4 to man, -3 to press. Still our second best corner, 86 man minus the morale. And then Landon Collins also got regression. He actually went down to normal dev, or only dev trait regression. So, won't be progressing as much as usual. Here's a look at our free agents going into season. There's not that many big ones. We took care of the big one in Brandon Scherf during the season, but there's quite a few. We're going to start off with a couple of testings. One, we don't want to bring back Cody Thompson. We won't bring back. Also won't bring back Duke Williams. There's a lot of the depth guys who usually see let go once a new regime comes in. Undrafted edge rusher Darius Hodge out of Marshall. He actually made an impact this year. He actually won't be brought back as well. First big one is our starting left tackle, Charles Leno, who played decent this year. He played very well down the stretch and into the postseason. He's a caliber left tackle, and he wants $10 million for 1 year. Now, it's hard to find linemen. I don't like a lot of turnover on the line, so I offer him a $10.5 million contract, and he actually declines it, so he'll be testing free agency. Right tackle David Sharp, we're also going to let test, and then Ryan Fitzpatrick, I will bring back. The free agency quarterback class is not very strong. It says only wants $7.6 million, but I do go by Armour's house rules, where if you do bring back your starting quarterback, it's got to cost at least $14 million. And since Fitzpatrick's coming off arguably his best season, I do think it makes sense to bring him back for at least one more year. So we're going to offer him a 1 year, $14 million contract, and Ryan Fitzpatrick will accept. So he will be the quarterback in our first season in Toronto. J.D. McKissick up next. He's an interesting one. I like McKissick. I didn't see a lot of him thanks to Gibson's record-breaking season. I would like McKissick to be brought back, but not for 3 years. I don't think he's worth a 3-year contract. So we're going to let him test as well. Bobby McCain, a free safety. You can also play some nickel. He'll test as well. Tim Settle, a backup defensive lineman who can get on rotations. Despite being 25 years old, I'm going to let him test as well. Dustin Hopkins, I'm interested in bringing him back for a 1 year, $1.65. He was not interested, so we go into the offseason looking for a new kicker. Adam Humphries, our slot receiver, who also had some regression. I didn't show his regression earlier, but it wasn't a lot, only -4. He had 7 touchdowns, came up big down the stretch in Week 18 as well as the Week 17 where he caught 2 touchdowns in each week. But for 3 years, I'm not interested, especially since he's already regressing. Same with John Bostic, despite being a 1-year contract. I mean, you saw how much he regressed. I don't think we should bring him back here. Cam Sims kind of lost his role once Dommy Brown stepped up. Not going to give him 3 years. Dale Roberts also regressed, our nickel corner. Not going to bring him back. David Mayo as well, a depth linebacker, part of the Ron Rivera, scheme. Don't think he really fits what we want to do now, especially since we're moving to a 3-4. So we're going to let David Mayo test. Cornelius Lucas, a backup left tackle. Not going to give him $2 million a year. He will test. A lot of these guys are backups, and they're going to be the ones who mostly test. Torrey McIntyre, a 27-year-old, 68 overall corner. Not really interested. He's still very raw, especially for $2 million a year. Kyle Allen, though, the backup quarterback who is also part of that Ron Rivera scheme. I do have interest in bringing him back, though. I don't know if that's necessarily the best idea in total, but I think he's a backup quarterback with starting experience, and so we're going to offer him a 2-year, $8 million contract to be the backup quarterback, and he does accept, so Allen and Fitzpatrick will both be back. Eric Kush was a backup lineman, and Manti Te'o as well, who were signed during the season with injuries, and then we're not going to let Tyler Lawson come back as well, so a lot of people test. Now, I am going to make one cut going into free agency. That's Eric Flowers, our starting left guard. I'm still very interested in bringing back Flowers, but if we cut him now, we save $10 million, so I think that's a good idea. So we'll go to free agency with $44 million in cap space, and there are some good ones out there. Mitchell Schwartz is the free agent, Chris Godwin, Jason Kelsey, Trent Brown. This is a very stacked class that I did not think would get this way. I didn't think there'd be this many good players, honestly. Marcus Williams, Raheem Mostert. You could definitely make some impact with this, especially with $44 million. I'm interested in making a splash. And the first one we're going to go after, Rob Gronkowski, also a free agent. Oh, and this is why I didn't want to go into the offseason looking for a quarterback. Winston is your top quarterback, as well as Newton and Mariota. And Winston actually goes to the Steelers. I don't know if I highlight that later. But, yeah, so Big Ben will not be the starter. Now, I want to bring in Mitchell Schwartz. We drafted Sam Cosmi last year as a 3rd-round pick. He's a good, serviceable tackle, but if you can bring in a guy like Mitchell Schwartz, I'd be interested in that. Before we get to him, though, I am interested in bringing back Eric Flowers, so we offer him a 2-year contract. But then to Mitchell Schwartz. Well, actually, before we get to Mitchell Schwartz, let's go to the left side. Tyrell Crosby is a left tackle I was looking at because we do now got to get a new left tackle. And I wasn't really interested in bringing back Leno, especially the Dolphins had some interest. Donovan Smith, a Super Bowl champion. He's very strong. He's a little older, but he's a starting tackle caliber. Chris Barnes is also somebody I was interested in. 3 years, $16 million was the fair offer. Very speedy. I think we definitely need to improve in the middle of the field. And I think if that's the fair offer, I'm interested in letting Chris Barnes have that. And that puts us in first place with that battle. Melvin Ingram is somebody I thought about. He could be a very dominant pass rusher, but we don't really need Melvin Ingram, especially with cap space. So I didn't give him a contract. Mike Hughes, I think we could use a new nickel corner. I think Mike Hughes can be that guy. He's not the fastest, but if he's going to play primarily the slot, don't need him to be the fastest. So for him, 2 years, $10 million. We did have the worst pass defense last year. So here are your 4 contracts. I gave Mitchell Schwartz a 2-year, $26.5 million deal to get in the first place. And so we simmed stage 1, and we'll see what happens. We got 2 exceptions and 2 rejections. We do get Mitchell Schwartz as well as Eric Flowers, but we don't get Chris Barnes and Mike Hughes. But nailing a right tackle superstar in Mitchell Schwartz, that's definitely going to help our offensive line. A couple of big signings. Jason Kelsey signed a 1-year, $11.5 million contract with the Jets. Marcus Williams going to the Colts on a 5-year deal, and so is Christian Kirk on a 3-year contract. They do lose Malik Hooker to the Lions, but they replace him with Ronnie Harrison, so the Colts were your big splashes in free agency. David Njoku goes to the Bengals. Hughes actually takes a contract with the Steelers for less money, and Barnes actually takes the same offer except with the Miami Dolphins. Before we jump into stage 2, I did put Ioannidis and Daron Payne both on the trade block. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to trade them, but we are very heavy on that defensive line, and we could spare one if needed to get some help elsewhere. Also put Cole Holcomb on the trade block. Back to left tackle, Donovan Smith is now getting some interest from the Rams, so I give him a 2-year, $12 million contract. You tell me if that's an overpay, especially for a 29-year-old tackle. Middle linebacker backup, I had to think of a backup plan. I thought about Alex Anzalone and Devondre Campbell, but I'm going to offer Anzalone. I think he's a slightly better player, 27 years old. We give him a 2-year contract worth $8 million, as I'd like to get our linebackers playing a lot better next season. Now back to corner. We missed out on Mike Hughes, but there's a couple of corners as backup plans that I actually do like. I like Trey Herndon, and I do like Isaac Yiadom. Now, we have some money, so why not offer contracts to both? I give Trey Herndon a 2-year, $7 million contract, and Isaac Yiadom a 2-year, $4.86 million contract. Both looking to be nickels. They could be a competition going into camp in preseason next year. New kicker, I want to bring in Rodrigo Blankenship. I like Rodrigo, and we offer him a 2-year contract to be our new kicker. So going into stage 2, here are our offers. We got Blankenship, Herndon, Yiadom, Anzalone, and Donovan Smith all getting offers next season. Now we go to Sim stage 2, and we get 3 out of the 4. We do miss out on Anzalone, but we do get Blankenship, Herndon, and Smith. Yiadom still mulling his offer, but that's now 2 middle linebackers that we've missed out on. Stage 2 top moves. This time the Seattle Seahawks get Chris Godwin on a 4-year contract worth $80 million, so Russell Wilson gets a new top target. Trent Brown goes to the Dolphins on a 4-year contract. Tanyan to the Colts as well. And then Nyheim Hines also to the Dolphins. And then Coleman to the Steelers. So Dolphins and Colts making big splashes in free agency. So now to our third option, LJ Forts. We're going down to lesser players. Offer him a 1-year, $7.5 million contract. Not guaranteed to make the roster, so I gave him a lower salary bonus. And he's not the biggest fan of that, but we'll see what happens there. McKissick also still wants a 3-year contract, so I didn't offer it to him. And we send the last stage, and we do get Isaac Yiadom, but Ford didn't accept. Now, he's still a free agent, despite the fact he's still mulling our offer, so don't know how that works, but LJ Fort is not a member of the team. Now, with free agency over, here a look at some of the top free agents still available. Raheem Mostert, Melvin Ingram, Bryce Callahan, Younghoe Koo, Rob Gronkowski, and Kareem Jackson are a couple of the tops who didn't find a team. If they don't find a team going into camp and preseason, I'll sign them to a team. Teams that I think make sense for them. So here's our roster going into the draft, and this is where I did cut the live stream so you can see where we need holes. I think we still need some help with offensive line depth. We could use maybe another receiver, definitely another linebacker, as we're still very weak there. Didn't fully address that position. And then I think we could maybe use a backup running back so Gibson doesn't take a majority of the snaps. But here's our roster. You can let me know in the comment section, what do you think of where we stand currently? What do you think was our best move? Where do you think we could have did a little better at? Now that does it for the live stream part, but there was some big trades that happened once the stream actually got cut. A couple of big trades, starting off with, we know what happens with Deshaun Watson. We know he wants out of Houston, and he gets out of Houston. The Dolphins trade the number 15th pick in this draft and 2 first-round picks next year, as well as Tua Tagovailoa to the Houston Texans for Deshaun Watson, Marcus Cannon, a 4th-round pick this year and a 5th-round pick next year. So Deshaun Watson, the new quarterback in Miami, they give up 3 first-rounders for him, as well as Tua Tagovailoa. Watson gets to play for Flores, and Houston gets a quarterback that they can replace for him. The second biggest trade is the Broncos acquire the number 1 pick and a 5th-round pick from the Eagles for the number 8 pick, a 3rd-round pick, and a 1st-round pick next year, and cornerback Ronald Darby. So the Broncos move to number 1. You don't do that kind of trade unless you're taking a quarterback, and it looks like the Denver Broncos at number 1 are going to take Heisman Trophy winner Spencer Rattler. So that sets off the stage for a firework draft. Let me know what you guys thought of the free agency off period down below. I will have a draft preview episode before the draft to kind of give you guys a look at the first rounders. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think of the moves down below. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.